This Saturday night at Avenue Theatre, the hula hoop will be the star of the show.
Hoop, rise, hoop, fly.
It sounds kind of silly because it's like this toy, but that's exactly why it's so effective. It's because you discount it immediately. Then you start to see the effects, and there's no way to discount it.
I really think hooping saved my life, though. I mean, I was so completely directionless before I started hooping.
Didn't believe that I could make an entire living by being artistic.
I just kind of fell into it. I'm a designer. That's my regular job. It wasn't enough. I wasn't expressing everything that I wanted to express, so I started hula hooping, and it was just phenomenal.
That is a little snippet from the documentary The Hooping Life. The doc tells the story of how something as simple as the hula hoop has changed people's lives around the world. Joining me is Amy Goldstein. She's the director of The Hooping Life. Also with us is Nina Wosar. She owns Infinity Hoop Dance here in Edmonton. And Carla Snow, the owner of Flow Lab. Ladies, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Everybody's here, all three of you?
Hi there.
Okay, good. Just making sure. Amy, I want to start with you. What was the impetus for making a documentary about, of all things, the hula hoop?
Well, I started it several years ago, and times were tough. You know, people were finding it hard to make a living. People felt very alienated by computers and didn't feel very hopeful. And I live in Venice, California, and there were lots of hoopers, very colorful people who looked really groovy, who were expressing themselves via the hula hoop. And they weren't only expressing themselves, they were taking to heart the sort of Burning Man mentality, which is, I'll help you out, you help me out. So people were teaching each other to teach classes and certifying each other and teaching each other to be performances and making outfits for each other and finding a way as young entrepreneurs to make a living and have a really interesting life. And I thought that was something really, really great to celebrate. And as I got into the stories deeper, I started to learn that there were people in South Central working with inner city kids to help build self-esteem. And there was a young woman in South Africa who had been raped and was lighting hoops on fire as a kind of healing tool and started working with young kids and, you know, helping other people sort of return to their body. And there were so many stories. And because I started early, you know, with a sort of underground subculture like skateboarding or breakdancing or surfing that was just starting out, I've told the stories of 8 of the sort of early hoopers, the pioneers of this movement. But now there are so many hoop stories and so many, you know, in your town. And hoopers have decided to screen the movie and kind of, you know, they're replacing Hollywood. That's why we're screening in your town.
How surprised were you that there was this whole subculture that existed?
I was surprised, you know, and I partly was surprised because it exploded as I started shooting. I mean, it really, I went one year to Burning Man, and let's say there were 100 hoopers, and I went back and there were 10,000 hoopers. And they were from everywhere in the world. And, you know, it is very surprising when you're in the middle. You know, I think the same thing happened when they made the first surf movies or breakdance started happening. You're like, really? Could this really be taking off like this? And it is.
So now let me bring it a little closer to home.
Yes.
Carla and Nina are both on the line with us. I'll start with you, Carla. You own Flow Lab here in Edmonton. You now teach hooping. How did you get hooked on this?
Sort of somewhat the same way that Amy described. I used to go to a music festival every year, and there was one hooper that we would sort of watch, and it was really neat. And over the years, she started teaching workshops, and I was actually too afraid to take the workshop, but I went and sort of lurked in the corner and watched, and it looked like way too much fun. So I bought my first hula hoop from her, and I've been hooping ever since.
What transformed, though? I mean, some of the stories that I've seen, little bits of the hooping life that I've watched, this has actually been a life-changing experience for people. What changed for you to take it from that to teaching?
Absolutely. For me, it was finding a creative outlet that I think had sort of been missing in my life. You know, as a kid, you have all these sort of great, you know, dreams. You're going to do this, you're going to do this. And then as an adult, maybe put those things on the shelf. For me, it was being super creative. And when I found the hula hoop and it was just, you know, it just seemingly innocuous toy that became something that was all I thought about. Then it became a really great tool for me to be creative, and from there it became a career. So
when this all happened, you were an accountant, right?
I was, yes. I used to be an accountant, and now I can tell people I'm a professional hula hooper, and it's fantastic.
Nina, how about you? What's your story of how the hoop has changed your life?
Similar to to Carla's story. I saw the hoop at a music festival about 5 years ago, and I was mesmerized by the beautiful dance, the fluidity, the organic movement that came from it, and I was inspired to learn. So I spent many hours in the hoop just sort of playing with it, discovering different movement, and it's just this amazing feeling of creativity and just being one with music.
And now you teach. Tell me about your students. A diverse group, I'm thinking?
Absolutely. Hooping is so available. Literally anyone can do it. I teach kids, I teach adults, and I've had up to seniors in my class. I know Carla has a seniors class as well. Men, women, it can be modified to be low impact. So it's very available, and anyone can tap into the fun that hooping is.
Carla, you were kind of mentioning you're a bit of a closet hooper in the beginning. Are there people who are closet hula hoopers?
I think so. Yeah. There's definitely those of us who like to show off, and we like to, put it out there, and we do enjoy the performance aspect. But I think there's just as many hoopers who do it for more of an emotional. They're more happy to tap into the emotional side of it, and they do it for themselves. They're not as much interested in putting on a show when they get inside their hoop.
Amy, I want you to tell us the story because we spoke earlier today. Tell me about the premiere of the film in Sarasota, Florida.
It was unbelievable. Hoopers came from almost all over the world for our premiere, and the streets were full of hoopers. So they did jams hours before the film happened, and the festival had to keep adding on screenings. I think we screened 5 times. And we took over the festival. And we had no idea that this would happen. And it's Sarasota, Florida, so we did have a lot of seniors hooping. And the kids who had a company there, the Hula Monsters, their business took off. People don't yet know enough about hooping. And I think the film tells the story, where there's so many we have 8 characters, and they're from all over the place and different ages and backgrounds. And you realize that you can love something. And if you commit to it, it can change your life. And I think it's a movie both about hooping and finding something that really matters to you and give it your all. And in the movie, you see 8 people who that happened to, and they're truly changed. And I think your local hoopers have the same experience, and it's kind of crazy and almost magical. And what's also crazy is it has turned a lot of people into entrepreneurs. And what we're so lucky is they're so good at what they do that they're great film promoters. So we want to thank your local hoopers because we're taking over Hollywood.
Yeah. Nina and Carla, I'll get you both to answer this, but what does it mean to have the movie premiering in Edmonton this weekend and, again, the hooping community here getting together? Nina, you go first.
Wow. I started hooping when there was almost no hoopers at music festivals, and now it's just exploded. It's huge, and I think that people are all really tapping into all of the magic that hooping is, and it's important for us to bring the community together and give everyone an opportunity to kind of get together, celebrate this art and get to know each other, and then also jam, which we're following the screening with, so that everyone can just celebrate together and do what they love to do with the hoop.
Carla, do you expect people just going to come and watch who aren't hoopers?
I'm hoping so. I really love these events to give back to the community, but also to expose others to something that they're not familiar with. So I'm hoping that we'll see some people in the audience who have maybe never picked up a hula hoop before, but by the time we're done with them, maybe we'll have converted them too.
Amy, you set out to make a documentary. Did it turn out the way you expected, or did it turn out much different than what you thought?
Honestly, it turned out much more interesting and better than I ever imagined. The Hoopers in part shot the film, and it's very intimate, and you really get to know the people in the movie and end up rooting for them and feeling like, your world's changed because you learned about a world you had no idea existed. So I really am more sort of amazed by what happened and amazed by the screenings that are going on.
Yeah.
And how much the community has gotten behind it.
Well, the little bits that I've seen, it is amazing to watch the impact that something as simple as a hula hoop has had on people. So I think people will find it very, very uplifting. Thanks, all 3 of you, for joining us and telling us about the hooping life. Thanks so much.
Thanks so for having us.
That's Amy Goldstein, director of the documentary The Hooping Life. We also heard from Carla Snow, the owner of Flow Lab here in Edmonton, and Nina Wosar, owner of Infinity Hoop Dance as well here in Edmonton. The Hooping Life premieres this Saturday at 9:30 p.m. at Avenue Theatre on 118th Avenue. Before that, though, at 8 o'clock, there will be a special hooping performance. Doors open at 7:30, and according to what Nina was telling us, there will be another hooping jam after the movie.